All right, good Monday morning from Yahoo Finance's New York City headquarters studios. I'm Yahoo Finance executive editor Brian Sozzi. I can't even believe it's Monday again. The weekend always goes by way too fast. Nonetheless, you can just feel the nervousness in markets right now. And let me tell you, you don't have to search too far to get the feeling that the bears are about to rip off your head. Bitcoin is off by more than 25% from its record highs. Nvidia is down by 10% from its October highs as the company nears its earnings release on Wednesday. Lots going on for the market to be locked in on. Let's get down to NASDAQ and check in with Ali Canal. Ali.
Hey, Brian. Yeah, we've had a volatile stretch, you could say, over the past couple of weeks. And we are seeing, a mixed picture right now on Wall Street. We have the Dow down around 0.3%. My Interactive just updated. The NASDAQ is also down 0.5%. The S&P down 0.4%. Earlier this morning in pre-market trading, futures were indicating possibly a higher open, but we saw that reverse, and now we are opening in the red throughout all three major indexes. Now, I mentioned some of the volatility that we've been seeing. And I want to take a look at the VIX. This is known as Wall Street's Fear Gauge Volatility Index. Over the past 10 days, we are up around 10% in some of those moves there. And it just speaks to the jitters that are happening across Wall Street. One, the fact that valuations remain incredibly stretched. Two, the positioning, the concentration of those AI infrastructure names within the S&P 500. If any of those names wobble, you're going to see the index be dragged lower. And we are also seeing some AI fatigue when it comes to retail flows. So all of that is a concern. However, across Wall Street, they've been really talking about earnings and how earnings have been strong. Expectations are high heading into 2026. And the hope is that could sustain this rally moving forward. And then quickly, let's just check Bitcoin, because we've been talking about Bitcoin for quite some time now. We are now firmly below $95,000 a coin. We have just seen a rapid deceleration in the price of Bitcoin. If you take a look year to date, we are now negative for the year, down roughly 0.4%. Of course, Bitcoin is very volatile. We could maybe see this cryptocurrency turn things around to get back into the green by the end of the year. But so far, it's just been a pretty brutal crypto winter, Brian.
Indeed. All right. Thanks, Ali. Appreciate it. Here's what I'm tracking right now. As Ali mentioned, crypto is cracking. Bitcoin Super Bull Michael Saylor is on the mark with this early morning post on X saying it will be a big week for the crypto faithful. Michael is right. Bitcoin is down about 25% from its record highs, and fears of a deeper pullback are piling up. Interesting point on all this from Bernstein today. They say, quote, "We believe the current price action in Bitcoin reflects fears stemming from the historical 4-year cycle peak pattern." Nvidia or bust. While the bears have circled the crypto trade, they have also surrounded the AI trade, as well as ahead of Nvidia's earnings release on Wednesday. Whereas the crypto community is worried about support levels on the charts, the AI bulls are simply concerned about valuations on AI stocks and that they are too lofty. Nvidia's earnings could go a long way to silencing those fears or totally feeding them. From everywhere I can see, Wall Street is looking for a home run quarter from Nvidia, with the wild card being guidance around China like always. All right, here on the opening bid roundtable, Chad Morganlander, Washington Crossing Advisors Senior Portfolio Manager, alongside Yahoo Finance Senior Reporters Ali Canal and Inez Ferre. Good to see you all. Chad, let me come out with you. Before I get to Nvidia, I have to mention what we're seeing with Warren Buffett's almost $5 billion stake in Google. Is that enough to arrest the sell-off in AI?
Well, no, not really. What you have happening here is more of the speculative fringes of the AI or quantum side. The high momentum stocks are starting to roll over. And that's because a lot of the math isn't mathing out. So, this isn't the end of the world. This isn't as if you haven't seen it before, but one needs to be more circumspect about the risk that's in their portfolio at this inflection point.
All right, so Chad, Nvidia, gauge how important this is. In the past two reports, I would argue, from Nvidia, they've been fundamentally strong. The company has disappointed, though, on terms of its outlook and some of that conference call language. Is that the setup here again?
Yes, I mean, they're going to blow away the numbers. They're going to perhaps raise their estimates, and that's fine. But they do have some modest competition. Look at, what Alphabet is doing with their TPUs, and then you have Grok with LPUs, and you have the AMD initiative. So there could be, over the next 3 to 5 years, some material competition to come into the world that they live in. So you may start to see a moderation when it comes to expectations and valuations. Keep in mind that their market cap is the size of the market cap of Germany's stock market.
And Inez, that's certainly normal, right?
Yeah, I mean, look, Nvidia it's still up 40% year to date. And yes, during the past earning calls, I mean, then the last one, I think that the sell-off happened because of the China issue and whether they did not include that in their forecast. And look, even their 500 billion backlog that was mentioned last month, that did not include China. So it'll be interesting to see if in this earnings call, they will talk about what their forecast or what they say about China. But I think that the bigger question is, as it was just alluded to, about the math behind some of this. I mean, Michael Burry and the bet against Nvidia sort of blew up the question a bit about the depreciation, whether or not GPUs can be depreciated on a 6-year cycle. Bernstein coming out actually with a note saying that yes, actually, it's profit. You can run GPUs in a profitable way for 6 years, and so they don't see the hyperscaler math too off. But it'll be interesting to see if anything is said about that. And also, look, the optics of it. I mean, you have Peter Thiel's fund that sold its entire stake of Nvidia last quarter. You have SoftBank that also sold its stake. So there are some questions on the peripherals here that may be causing some of these jitters.
And Ali, it's not just Nvidia. In the entire AI complex over the past few weeks, I mean, these stocks are well off their highs, whether it's Palantir, AMD, you name it.
Yeah, and we're seeing that across the larger tech space. And like I alluded to earlier, we have this concentration of these stocks within the S&P 500. So if you see Nvidia fall even 3%, that's going to be a very significant drag on the overall market. So that brings to question whether we are too concentrated with these AI heavy names, and what is the risk of that when you have valuations at decade highs for the S&P 500. Of course, we've been talking a lot about whether or not we're in an AI bubble, and there are a few strategists out there that say absolutely we are. But I will say the bulk of Wall Street is pretty optimistic about the future when it comes to AI. The demand is real. The demand is there. Yes, you will have these periods of volatility. You will have these corrections. You will have these pullbacks. But largely, when I dig through the commentary, when I talk to analysts, they're telling me this is a healthy breather. This is a moment of digestion. It's not a full-blown market meltdown. Of course, that all remains to be seen.
Chad, when you see news that a Peter Thiel and a SoftBank are selling Nvidia, I mean, these leaders at these two companies are some of the most plugged-in leaders in the entire world. Like, what's the read-through there for you?
Well, I mean, the read-through is that perhaps certain select companies' valuations are distorted and they're just taking some risk off their portfolio. But many of these venture capital funds will reinvest in more aggressive or other opportunities within AI. You just have to look no further as Palantir, for example, as a symbol of what kind of valuations investors are willing to pay. At 100 times revenues, some of these valuations are mind-blowing. But then you can get seams of opportunity in other companies that are perhaps more, I believe, back to basics, like the IBMs and the Microsofts of the world.
Despite the sell-offs, Chad, over the past few weeks in AI, the reality is AI is getting built out aggressively. Infrastructure is getting built out aggressively across this country. Should investors simply ignore these ups and downs in these stocks and make a focus on the decade of build out here, and that's the real potential?
I think that is the real potential, but one needs to be balanced within their portfolio. So you could have a company like a Microsoft and an IBM alongside perhaps other companies that are not technology stocks. Valuations, when it comes to the broader markets, are historically high. Credit spreads are historically tight now between high yield spreads and treasuries. So this isn't the time to perhaps lean into risk in an aggressive manner at this point in time. One needs to be more balanced.
Inez, let me get over to you on crypto, because the sell-off has gotten I would say pretty severe, to say the very least. I was reading a good note from Bernstein this morning, and they said the sell-off essentially because this happens every 4 years. I mean, it's not exactly mind-blowing research, but those are the fears in the marketplace.
Yeah, that's right. That the 4-year cycle for Bitcoin and whether or not we've seen the peak or not, Bernstein is saying, no, we haven't seen the peak yet. This is a short-term correction. They point to institutions that are owning ETFs. They point to the government that has been very pro-crypto, the Trump administration, and the Clarity Act that is in Congress as well. That should send crypto prices higher. The question is whether or not we have seen a bottom, whether or not there's a consolidation around here, and then you go higher from there. Sean Farrell of Fundstrat was sort of eyeing the low 90s. Bernstein is saying that you could see a better entry point in the 80s. So perhaps we haven't seen a bottom when it comes to these prices.
Ali, it is not just Bitcoin off the highs. I mean, across the board, we were just showing a great graphic. I mean, the sell-off has been widespread, almost like we were just talking about in AI.
Yeah, you're seeing some of those other altcoins also struggle, and that tends to happen if Bitcoin is lower. You're going to see Ethereum, some of those other crypto names drag lower as well, and the opposite is the case too. When there's a rally in Bitcoin, typically you see this rally in those other altcoins, but this chart is also pointing to some of those names that are exposed to crypto, exposed to Bitcoin. Robinhood, one of those examples there. So this isn't just a story about crypto, it's also the ripple effect that it's having as more companies adopt cryptocurrencies, adopt stable coins. This has now become more a part of the vernacular of all of these different companies in a way that we haven't seen over the past year. So what does that mean when it comes to balance sheets? If there's an over-reliance on crypto, you have a company like Strategy. We spoke to the CEO, Michael Saylor, at our Invest conference last week, who is very heavily invested in Bitcoin, and they gobbled up even more Bitcoin over the past week during this sell-off. What is the risk reward there for investors? And I think that's going to be a question that investors need to ask themselves moving forward as crypto becomes more a part of this main stage of finance, the stock market and finance news.
Chad, no small surprise that this latest sell-off in crypto coincides with that more hawkish tone from the last Fed meeting.
Without a doubt. I mean, look, crypto, the whole world of crypto is like trading vol, and the most volatile group is this sector. So the altcoins started to fade, and then you started to see Bitcoin, and then you started to see Solana. They all started to trade off with Ethereum. We expect the Federal Reserve to be dovish going into the next meeting and to reduce rates once again, regardless of what the numbers are. The economic numbers that will be delayed that will come out.
Well, Chad, what would you tell folks that purchased Bitcoin and various cryptos at the top? This just was over about a month ago. I mean, Bitcoin was trading about almost $127,000. What should you be doing?
So my message on this segment entirely is to make sure that you size your portfolio correctly, anticipating additional vol within the market. So I would, if they are overweight in that position within their entire net worth, you may need to scale some back and be just mindful that this segment of the financial world is going to perhaps have 3x, 4x, or 5x the volatility of the S&P 500 or the Dow.
Great insight. A big thanks to my opening bid roundtable, Chad Morganlander, Ali Canal, and Inez Ferre. Appreciate it. Coming up, a milestone moment for Jeff Bezos and his Blue Origin team. I'll talk all about it next with Blue Origin CEO David Lim. In a show-stopping second test flight, Blue Origin's New Glenn rocket stuck its landing. New Glenn nailed its landing on Jacqueline, Blue Origin's drone ship, which was stationed about 375 miles offshore. In the process of all this, New Glenn successfully sent NASA's Escapade mission to Mars in what will be an 11th-month journey to get there. Joining us now for the first time ever on Yahoo Finance for today's Power Player is Blue Origin CEO David Lim. David took over as CEO in December 2023. He had spent years leading Amazon devices, including spearheading the launch of Alexa. David, good to see you here. I can't even imagine what it takes to pull something like this off. Help us understand, what did you exactly achieve and how did you arrive at this point?
Yeah, this was our second flight for New Glenn, which is our large rocket, and this is a beast of a rocket. It's over 320 feet tall, millions of pounds of thrust, and we were able to not only get it to orbit, get our customers successfully on their way to Mars, and NASA in this case, but also the first commercial company to land a booster, an orbital class booster, on their second attempt here. It was just an amazing accomplishment by the whole team, and to be frank, a watershed moment for Blue Origin.
That hour before the rocket launch, what are you doing as CEO?
Well, about an hour before we get on console with the rest of the team. So we're in mission control, listening to the countdown and, and kind of helping out with anomalies. Mostly the team's doing it. If everything's working properly, it's quiet. And we had one quick scrub right before that happened at about T minus 10 seconds. We recycled, which we have the ability to do. We fixed that little bit check that didn't pass, and then we were ready for launch. And so I'm listening in like everybody else, and kind of crossing my fingers like everybody else too. It's an anxiety-filled moment for sure.
And then by the same token, when that rocket lands on that barge, codenamed Jacqueline, what were some of your first thoughts?
Well, there's a lot of work that goes into leading up to this, and we do a huge amount of simulations. The Monte Carlo simulations say that it's a high probability that this is going to happen, that we're going to land, but you're never sure. Rockets are hard, space is hard, and when that dust cleared and we saw the booster, never tell me the odds, sit there on Jacqueline intact, I was ecstatic and over the moon for the team and for Jeff, who founded this company. But to be honest, you kind of had to quickly turn and pivot because the mission was still going on. We still had the second stage to do another burn. We had to get the payloads to orbit, so it was kind of back to work really quickly. Later that night, I had a chance to celebrate with the team, but right afterwards, it was back to work.
Dave, for us humans like you and me still on Earth, why is Mars so important?
I think the moon and Mars are really important. We've sent probes to all these different places, but if we really want to get to a point which is our mission at Blue, to get millions of people working in space, we have to build the infrastructure to get off this planet. And the stepping stone is the moon. And our next mission, or the one right after that, we're going to be sending the largest lander ever to the moon. That'll happen early next year. And then beyond that, once we build bases on the moon, we have water on the moon, we can build fuel on the moon, and that can be a stepping stone to Mars and the rest of the solar system. And that allows us to build a infrastructure in space that can take heavy industry off the Earth, and we can enjoy the planet for what it is.
Settle this debate for me. So last week I had Alexis Ohanian on for our Invest event, and he said we might build data centers in space. Is that even possible in our lifetime?
Oh, it's going to happen for sure in our lifetime. The wonderful thing about space is that you have an infinite energy source in the sun. It is by far the best energy source we have, and we can harness that through known technology, solar panels, and then beam that energy back to Earth, or beam the data back to Earth. And we have high-speed data links in the forms of lasers, and so increasingly these data centers that are getting built are starved for power on Earth, and it just makes sense that over time they'll migrate to space. And I don't think it's going to happen next year, but over the next 5 to 10 years, you're going to see that come to fruition for sure.
Would they look like what we're building here? Are you talking like physical warehouses with servers in it?
Yeah, I think you'll look at them. They'll be shaped differently because they'll be on spacecraft, but and they have to be cooled differently. And one of the dirty little secrets about space is it's very cold, but it can also be very hot. So we'll have to figure out how to dissipate the heat. But these will be big structures in space, linked together through laser comm links, and then beaming that data back down to Earth. Yeah.
Dave, if I have my math right, you're coming up, December will be 2 years as CEO of Blue Origin. I mean, you didn't need to be sending rockets. I mean, you had an accomplished career over at Amazon, helping to launch Alexa and leading consumer devices. Why did you take this job, and what has it been like the past almost 2 years?
Yeah, I spent 30 years in consumer electronics. I loved it. I'm Apple and Palm and finally at Amazon for almost 14 years. I just thought I knew I had energy left in me and I wanted to do something new. And the only tenet I had when I started looking after I left Amazon was I wanted to do something that if 99 out of 100 people, if I told them what I did, they would think that I was giving back to society in some way. And when I'd known Jeff, obviously worked for him for 15 years, and the CEO transition was happening here, and he asked whether I'd take the job. My first instinct was I wasn't a rocket scientist, maybe it wasn't right, but it turns out what Blue really needed, and I think Jeff's instincts were right, was somebody that understands manufacturing. We want to be the world's best manufacturing company here in the United States. And manufacturing in consumer electronics and rockets, it's a different scale, but the problems are the same. And so hopefully I've brought a little bit of that to Blue, and 2 years has just been amazing. It's gone by so fast, and it was certainly my boyhood dream to think about rockets, and now to be able to get up every day and help build them with the team. It's amazing. I'm pinching myself every day.
So a big drop the mic here moment for Blue Origin before year end. What does 2026 look like? How many rockets do you plan on launching, and then what are some of the barriers that you have to cross over to imagine to pick up the pace of these launches?
Yeah, there's never been more demand. So we do not have a demand problem out there. The customers want to, these mega constellations want to fly. Amazon has Leo, AST has theirs. And we have a backlog of a large number of customers. So for us, it is just a ramping production issue. And so we've now proven the technology works. That landing was, there was no better proof than that. And so really it's getting the factories to start humming, and they have already on our engine side. We're developing and producing engines really fast. And now it's getting boosters and second stages out, and then learning the refurb process as we recover these boosters and bring them back. Never tell me the odds will be arriving at port tomorrow morning. We'll get a look at what the ship looks like, and we'll turn it around and fly it again. And like I said, our next mission, or the one right after that, early next year, is going to be a big lander to the moon. And we really can't wait to have presence back on the moon again.
David, not so many executives get to work so closely with a visionary like a Jeff Bezos. That's just what he is. What makes Jeff Bezos, and what does he bring every day inside of Blue Origin?
Two things I find just amazing about him is, first, he's the most tactically impatient person I've ever met, but the most strategically patient person I met. So he will drive for excellence in the near term, but he has the ability to look very long, over very long horizons. One of my favorite sound bites from him is all of Amazon's overnight successes took about 10 years. And that's the way he tends to think like that. But I would say on top of that, Jeff is the most curious person I've ever met. And so when he wants to go down the rabbit hole on an idea, he will bite into it and go the distance and learn and become an expert on that topic. And the combination of those two traits make him a very unique individual for sure.
Well, I very much am looking forward to following your continued journey next year. It looks like exciting times for Blue Origin. David Lim, congratulations again. We appreciate it.
Thanks, Brian.
All right, coming up, much more ahead on Yahoo Finance. We have Market Catalysts, and we'll also have a new episode of the Opening Bid Unfiltered podcast. That is now on our site and all podcast platforms. I sat down with Jose Minaya of BNY. This was an awesome interview. I encourage you all to check it out. We'll be right back.